Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Well, welcome to the Legal Lounge. Leah, it's so nice to have you here with us. I'm excited to learn more about the financial advising world. But without further ado, tell us more about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Theresa. You know, I have been a fan of yours for years, and Modern Legal is just setting the standard for helping individuals that are going through these really hard life challenges. So thank you for everything that you do. So my name's Leah Williams. I've been in the financial industry for the last, will be 9 years in the fall. And, you know, we all have reasons that we do what we do. And for me, it was my own life experience that kind of catapulted me into this industry. So been through divorce, been through a lot of loss, and been through a lot of those life things that happen in a short amount of time. And that's what fuels what I do every day. I have a planning partner, Robin, which she would have loved to be here, Robin Waddell. So when you see me, you will probably see her when we do planning for clients. But you know, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be a part of helping people accomplish what they want to in life and helping them dream and actually accomplish their dreams.
And so we're here in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, known as one of the leading financial cities in the United States, if not the world. I'll go ahead and say
City.
the Queen City. And so financial advisors are a dime a dozen here. They really are. But it's also, I like how you and Robin have a very unique take on advising financially the community. First off, you're female. So let's start there. Female financial advisors. Not many of those.
Yes.
But tell us your unique stance on financial advising.
So we want the experience to be completely different. You know, even when I was creating the Savvy Financial website, which is more of the women's brand. So Robin founded Emerald. I started Savvy, and Savvy's really focused on filling that gap that there has been in the industry for a long time, which is meeting women where they're at, speaking their language, and creating a different experience that is attractive, exciting, and makes planning empowering, not intimidating. So it starts there. It starts with initial conversations and just the process that we take people through, like I said, allowing them to feel like they can dream. You'll hear us talk about taxes a lot. You know, it's the thing that the bill that never seems to go away. So that's one of the things that we're well known for is tax strategy and efficiency when it comes to building wealth. But we want to give people this experience that allows them to feel excited about their future and in control. So, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions about money, and you know, I know we'll dig into that a little bit more, but we start to change the dynamic and how people view it, and it becomes one of the most exciting, empowering aspects of their life.
And especially being here in the South, I run across, as a family law attorney, a number of individuals, specifically the females of certain relationships, where they may not be the one who has access to the bank accounts, controls the budget, or determines the budget. And I think it's crucial for everyone, not just the leading financial partner in a relationship, to know what's going on financially.
Couldn't have said it better. Yes. Well, it's for multiple reasons. You know, we all have different strengths. And I think some people would say, you know what, my spouse is just really good at this. They're really organized and I'm not quite as good. That's fine. You know, let someone shine in things that they're good at. But it's just having an awareness of what's going on. It doesn't mean that you have to know the intricacies of investing or what does that ticker symbol represent. That's not the point. It's just having an understanding of what's important to you as a couple, or, you know, if you're just an individual, not shying away from things that maybe initially feel uncomfortable. I've seen it firsthand. I
Yeah.
youngest of 6, and my brother passed away at 34 and was married with 5 little girls. So, his wife had to pick things up immediately and had to have an understanding of what was going on so that, she could continue the same lifestyle for her girls. So whether it's that or, women just feeling like no matter what happens in life, they could make good decisions on their own. I mean,
Yeah.
women do live longer than men. Let's just be honest.
I was about to say that statistically, we are, even if we're married, if we have a life
Yes.
partner, it's one of those situations where we are likely going to be financially independent at some point.
Yes.
Just because we live so long.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, by the year 2030, trillions of dollars will transfer to women just for that reason, us living longer as well as many others. So, I feel like it's an opportunity for us to not only be empowered, but also not be taken advantage of. When you have a certain level of understanding, you can catch things. You're like, you know what, that doesn't sound right. Like you said, there's a lot of advisors,
Yes,
or what are called advisors, and not only do you need to work with the right one, but you just never want to be taken advantage of. You never want to have your lack of knowledge be to your detriment when it comes to finances.
Yeah, agreed. So before we get into some of the weeds, if you will, financial advising, especially for those before, during, and after a marriage, we have had a certified divorce financial analyst on the show before. And I just wanted to get your perspective of what are the differences between a CDFA and a financial advisor? Great
Question. I'm so glad you brought this up because there are many differences and they each have their place. So I am a huge advocate for CDFAs. So if I meet someone, they're going through a divorce or maybe haven't filed the papers, but it's, they're thinking this will probably happen, we can discuss changes that will happen in their life and some things that they will need to know, but they should not be making big financial decisions, especially if they're going through that divorce. So where a CDFA comes in is they are the advocate for that person throughout the divorce process, helping them understand what is equitable estate division. What does that mean? Especially for, it's not always women. Sometimes it's men, but a lot of times it's women that don't necessarily understand the value of different assets. So they might say, you know what? I don't care about those RSUs or this pension, probably doesn't mean anything, when it really may hold a lot of value that they have a share in. So the CDFA is really one of the best partners through the divorce process. So, I always tell people I can help you project some things, but until the divorce decree is final and everything is done and you know what you have, you should not be moving money. You should not be making big decisions. So I think that's the big difference with financial advisors and planners. And I think there's even a difference between those two titles.
Sure.
In the CDFA, they are the person that needs to link arms with you during this divorce process.
Yeah, the financial advisor through the divorce process.
Yes. And then when things are settled, then we know exactly what you have. Then we can talk about over time making adjustments.
Yeah.
Once you're confident, you should never make big decisions in a heightened emotional state.
That's very true, very true. Speaking of emotions, I would say one of the biggest emotional transitions in our lives is getting married. So it's interesting for me because I'm recently married.
Yes.
And it was interesting for me personally to see another person successful in his career, financially stable, owned real property, had retirement accounts.
Right.
But we had very different mindsets going into how we spend money and how money is organized.
Shocking.
Right? And I was like, and it's not just little differences. It's pretty big differences. I'm willing to take a financial risk. And he's like, no, we need to save. So from the financial advising world, what do you see?
A lot of what I call money stories that we have, whether it's what we were taught when we grew up and our experience. We come into these marriages with just our experience in life and these different belief systems, and that ties into money too. So some people may see money as, there's never enough and we can't take any risk. We have to hold on to it. We never had any money growing up, and there's kind of this fear around money, which is understandable. And then you might have somebody else that's like, you know what? Take big risk. Huge reward. Let's do this. Let's start the business. Let's make this investment. So while it may be initially a very vulnerable, sometimes challenging conversation to have, people go through premarital counseling to talk about other things, but money is just as important. And there can be some compromise. I understand you're more conservative, so let's come up with the right balance, because that can be a huge source of tension and stress. And when people get divorced.
Yeah. Yeah. And the financial conversation should be happening throughout, before the marriage, during the marriage, and should a marriage dissolve, even after the marriage. Because whether we like it or not, money is necessary to function in this world.
And it takes a lot. I mean, there's so much stress that's just part of life, especially when kids come along. So if money can be the thing that you come together on, and, same thing that we talk about with women, it becomes an empowering thing for them. Let it be that for you as a couple. I think it's great. I'm a big believer in writing things down. What do we want to have together?
Yeah.
And then when you talk about saving, investing, whatever it may be, what's on the other side of that. Yeah. It's not just, oh man, why are we saving all this money? What are we doing with this? It's because you're buying the beach house. It's because you're buying the boat, or whatever it may be.
Whatever the goal may be.
Yeah.
There's no conversation more romantic than discussing a prenup with your partner, right? Okay, maybe the song for your first dance does a bit more in the romance department. Speaking of emotions, though, the prenup is a very legal document that everyone has a very emotional reaction to. Many people avoid the prenup conversation because they feel it is an indication that the marriage will fail. But here's the truth. Half of all marriages already fail, regardless of whether the spouses had the prenup conversation or not. If you or someone you care about is getting married, would knowing what marriage involves legally be important? What about having the difficult conversations surrounding finances, career aspirations, and pursuing parenthood prior to the wedding date? If you are looking to build a solid foundation for your marriage, or you want the same for someone you care about, we are here to help you learn more about prenups from a position of knowledge, not emotion. To learn more about family law from a legal professional, book a consultation with a member of the Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal services at modernlegalnc.com. And so what would you tell people who are about to get married from a financial perspective?
There's a lot. No, you can keep it relatively simple. I think, if you're single and you know that you're going to be joining your life with someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to join all finances. But I think it's joining, having conversations so that you're at least on the same page.
Yeah.
Of course, I think there's just some basic planning that every person should do, married or not. Of course, you want that buffer for yourself because life things happen. So you want to have that cushion. Employers really provide so many robust benefits, but sometimes they're not explained properly. So I would say, ask your HR department what's available just for myself.
Yeah.
Whether it's protecting your income or matches in 401ks, or sometimes they have legal plans. Go ahead and get your own will and dictate what you want to happen. God forbid, unexpected things.
Yeah.
So some of those basic things that you should do as a single person, and then thinking about joining with someone else, I think it's having the conversation. How are we going to operate best? Am I paying the bills and you're paying me every month because we're splitting it? Or maybe one spouse isn't going to work because they want to start a family right away. So just having a conversation on that dynamic, because both people are still working.
Yeah.
One's just not leaving the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's fair. Yeah.
And as I tell my sisters that are stay-at-home moms, I mean, I think their job is harder than mine.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really key point too, is if one spouse won't be working, okay, well, if you're not working outside of the home,
what does that look like?
Right. Is there still money that's going to them so they feel like it's theirs?
Yeah.
And that could take us on a whole rabbit trail.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to go ahead and do a little plug here as a family law attorney. I'm going to say that I think part of the financial discussion before getting married should also involve a prenup discussion. And when I say discussion, I'm not saying everyone who's about to get married needs to have a prenup.
Right.
It's more of creating that understanding. Okay, how are we going to organize the financial and ownership aspects in the relationship, and even some of those financial dependency determinations. Because in the family law world, there is the spousal support obligation that is assumed once you say I do.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that. And then, down the line when they're divorcing and someone consults with me and they're like, oh, I didn't know I'd have to continue to support the stay-at-home parent, male or female.
You're saying I do to a lot.
Yeah, they're saying I do to a lot of things that they don't understand, both from an emotional standpoint, but also from a very real financial standpoint.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because even thinking back myself years ago, I've been married for almost 5 years. The second marriage, I got a good one this time.
Yes.
Once again, misconceptions about money, prenups. Oh, if you get a prenup, that means you don't trust them. That means, you think divorce is going to happen. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It means that you're thinking about being organized and wanting to have open conversations. Same reason why you'd get life insurance. You don't want to die. That's not the plan.
Yeah.
But you have it as because you're being responsible and you're planning for unexpected things.
Yeah.
So, if you would have asked me, 10 years ago, oh, why would you get a prenup? So it's, I think, education, people to understand what it really means and does for them.
Yeah. And a prenup is not only a tool in the event of a divorce. It really is, to your point, organize those financial understandings of, okay, if there is going to be a stay-at-home spouse, are we going to make sure we have a certain amount of money in a joint bank account, or maybe even a savings account, or, the goal is to, the stay-at-home parent be at home for 5 to 10 years, but thereafter the goal is to for both parents to be working. It could be so many different ways, very individual to the couple.
I think it provides an opportunity to have the conversations that they may not have. So it's almost like this, pursuing this or being educated on it creates all these very valuable conversations and dialogue around, okay, well, how do you view money? How do you view spousal relationships and who controls what? So it's needed. And I think, especially meeting with someone like you can induce that dialogue that's really needed early on.
Yeah. And okay, so let's move on. Okay, parties are married. They move in with each other. And let's just assume that maybe they have some joint accounts, some separate accounts.
Sure.
What is, say, the financial maintenance that you would recommend during a marriage?
Well, once again, open communication. I'm all for outlining, what is important to us together and then separately, because you will be different in a lot of areas. I think many of us marry total opposites.
Yeah.
In many, many ways. So having that communication, thinking of, we don't want any bad things to happen in life, but we see it happen all the time. So let's be responsible and let's think about, what if XYZ were to happen? Okay, what if you lost your job? Do we have that 3 to 6 months that could cushion us and carry us forward till you found another job? What if one of us couldn't work? What does that look like? And it may just be checking a box through your benefits. I get short-term disability. They pay for it. Let me pay $10 a month for long-term disability. Basic things like that to know what each person has for what if circumstances. Because of what's happened in my life, I'm always a huge advocate for the right amount of insurance, just because of what happened to my brother. Things like that shouldn't happen. So some of those risk management, not sexy part of the financial planning conversation, but so needed, kind of the glue that holds these pillars together. Yeah. And then when it comes to investing, what's our appetite for risk? Yeah. What's available to us, maybe through employer, or we work with a lot of self-employed people. So what do you want to create through your business? Yeah. There's a lot of tax advantages as well with a lot of these steps in planning. So once again, I think it's education around how valuable these things are, whether it's leveraging what your employer's offering, creating them for yourself if you're a business owner, having the emergency savings, those different insurances, and then, I'm a big believer in alternate ways of investing. So we love stock market, but maybe you want to build a real estate portfolio. What is it going to take to do that? Yeah. So maybe that means, okay, we're going to start with buying our first house together. We're in this apartment and we need, within the next 18 months, we're going to be in a house. Yeah. So maybe that's where you're putting a lot of your savings.
And go one step further. I think the avenue to get there, right? To say buy a house in the next year, 18 months.
Right.
Well, then you may need to talk to a mortgage broker. You may need to talk to a realtor. You may need to bring in all these other professionals.
Yes.
And I think from our perspective, we are regularly in the weeds with these other professionals.
So, yes.
Right? So I know a lot of realtors and mortgage brokers that could help in individual circumstances.
And may open their eyes to what's possible. You know,
Yes.
for the longest time, once again, you know, what we're used to thinking, it was always you put 20% down on the house.
Yeah.
So it feels like this monumental thing. I mean, especially in Charlotte real estate market.
Especially right now.
What are houses going for? So it can feel overwhelming, like, oh man, how are we going to save that? Well, maybe you just have to put 3% down.
Yeah.
And you refinance, or maybe your parents want to gift you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And so once again, not feeling bad about not knowing and seeking out information will catapult you much farther in life. I think that real estate is one of the most amazing investments, and starting with your own piece. I mean, you can leverage it in so many ways. So yeah, it's just having the conversations and not telling yourself, oh, I'm not good with money.
Yeah.
This isn't my thing, which I think women do a lot.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm just not that good at organizing.
Yeah. Everyone has room for improvement when it comes to money. Simply put.
Yes.
We all at times will be like, I have no idea what IRA means. What does that even stand for? Right. You know, and it's okay to not know or feel like you don't know.
Yes.
And that's why we're here. You know, the professionals they can reach out to.
There needs to be someone that has, you know, this enormous knowledge base, but you have to be comfortable with them.
Yeah.
So you will know right away if it's a good match. So if you come across someone and you're like, oh, I didn't have a great experience, it doesn't mean that all are like them.
Exactly.
All attorneys are not Theresa Vieira, which they were. But so I think that can sometimes stop people as they talk to someone and they're like, oh, this was not a good experience. And that's what halts the process.
Almost taints the whole industry when it's like, again, we're in Charlotte. There's so many financial advisors out there. I have joked with my clients. I'm like, shopping for an attorney is like shopping for shoes. Just because it's in your size does not mean it feels comfortable on your foot.
For such personal aspects of your life, you have to not only trust that other professional, believe that they will always do what's in your best interest, but feel like they understand you, and that makes the process comfortable and sometimes fun.
Yeah.
I mean, not that, you know, going through a divorce, but when you feel like, okay, someone's going to advocate for me, that gives you a lot of comfort.
Yeah.
Doing financial planning, this person knows what I want to do in my life and they're going to help me get there. That gives you a lot of peace and a lot of motivation.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's shift to that, to the unfortunate reality that a lot of marriages do end up dissolving. Approximately 50% at the moment. That goes up and down based on various factors.
Right.
I love when people ask me the question, and of course my attorney response is, it depends.
Exactly. Yes.
Some people are like, we're done with that response, but it does. It really does. And then going one step further, people may choose divorce, not necessarily for any even bad reasons. But just because it's the choice that they're making at this point in this chapter of their lives.
Right.
So from your perspective, if an individual coming to you, you know, I've just gotten divorced, we've separated the property, we've figured out any spousal support issues, what would you tell them? Where would you start the conversation?
So I would start with the infrastructure of their world. What's important to them, you know, especially if children are involved. You know, as a newer parent myself, my son will be 2 next month, and they are your world, and everything that you do is typically to make sure that they're okay. So I think if you're a parent, you know, you have to think about yourself. You know, how are you going to be okay financially? But then you're also directly tied to that. It's your children. So once it's kind of going back to those basics. Before you were married, what are the good things that you needed to have in place? You know, yes, there's some protection. Yes, you want to have a little bit of cushion. You may have come through a divorce and, you know, I had a lot of bills and I'm starting over from scratch. That's okay. I have been there. So many people have been there. I think it's the perseverance to start to rebuild.
Yeah.
And you can do it because let's be honest, nobody has a perfect life.
Nope.
And it's easy to have that shame. I should have done this. I should have done that. It's in the past.
Yep.
It's time to start over and build your new life. And there's a lot of opportunity. So once again, it goes back to mindset on money, but some basic things, let's start to build up that cushion. So before you aggressively invest, let's give yourself a little bit of cushion in your bank account.
Yep.
Let's set aside the $50 a week, whatever it is. Also knowing where your money's going. Many times I find, this happens all the time, is people be making decent income and have no idea where it's going. They're like, I work hard. I feel like I make a lot of money. And why don't I have more? Why don't we have more investments? And when we do analysis and look at cash flow, sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable initially, but they see, why are we spending money on this?
Yeah.
And then it puts them in the driver's seat to say, let's reallocate that over here.
Yep.
So sometimes it's just a matter of shifting where resources are going.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it first to figure out. So cash flow is big. Some basic protection. Let's protect your income. Maybe it's disability, a little bit of life insurance. Because without you, the world for your kids doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So you've got to insulate yourself, your ability to earn income and to be able to provide for them.
Yeah. There are a lot of laws that apply to these financial circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one that pops out at me right now, especially talking about children, is that there is no financial obligation really on either parent to help a child through college.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, and you have just divorced, and let's say the goal was to help your child through college, but now expenses for both parents have gone up because they're now no longer married. It changes the dynamic.
Yes.
And you have to be flexible. I feel like you said the word flexibility before in our conversations, where you have to be very flexible of, okay, yes, you were planning on sending your child to UNC Chapel Hill, one of the best universities in the whole world, because I'm biased, I'm Tar Heel. And now you are maybe discussing, maybe we shift that plan, or maybe your child does have to apply for financial aid. And these are all new factors that are coming about because of the divorce.
And it may be, conversation depending on who has primary custody, or if it's, 50-50, who's claiming the child on taxes, or both are one income. If you go to fill out the FAFSA forms and they look at the EFC or the estimated family contribution, which spouse do you want to use for that? Because that could mean more aid.
Yep.
So it's challenging because it may be very, maybe a smooth process. Like you said, some people may just decide, we're not a good fit for each other. And then there's other, really nasty divorces. So it may be, hey, we have to come together because it's for a child.
Yeah.
I may hate you at the moment, but we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
So that you can provide as much to your child. If something like that is important, they may be able to get more aid if the other parent is filing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to think about. And I know it's overwhelming. Yeah. And I think that's where, a CDFA can help. As it almost gets you ready. And I meet with people going through the process as well. We just don't make any big money moves. We talk about how to be prepared and not reactive.
Yeah.
So divorce is over. You're feeling the emotions, and you just don't want to make a decision that you would regret because you're in this high emotional state. Yeah. So it's just a lot of preparation and knowing what financial outcomes there will be based on different decisions, and knowing what's best for you and your kids.
Yeah. Speaking of emotions and finances and children, I'm going to add here, because I've heard it before, where a parent will say, you know what, I don't want to take the child support. I just want my child, or someone else will, well, I'll give you sole custody if I don't have to pay you. I add this plug because the money isn't for a parent. The money is not spousal support in that circumstance. The money's for the kid. And whether we like it or not, especially before the age of, 15 and a half, 16, the child doesn't have income. The child is not earning money most of the time.
Right.
And so this child support really is for the financial well-being of a child.
That's why you need such a good advocate to not only remind you of things like that, but to stand up for you, because it is, of course, at the end of the day, you want what's best for your child, and you want, to have them be in your custody. But for those who don't have children, let me tell you, it's a little bit expensive. So when you think about all those things that will help you be able to give your child the life that they want, whether it's sports or the expenses add up, and by requiring that there is child support, it does not mean that these other things aren't important. It means that you are thinking about your child.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And you know that you'll need that support. So kids just don't pop up.
Yep.
There's two people that make it happen.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Both people have to determine what is fair.
And to that comment, the courts and our judicial system will put the children first.
Mm-hmm.
You can't afford
Thank
it.
God.
I don't want the money. It's not your decision, right?
Right.
It's for the child's benefit.
And don't go try to lose your job or decrease your income so that you pay less. Don't try that. You have to deal with Theresa.
Because then there'll be a strong litigator behind that mistake.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, as we wrap up here, is knowing how important it is to address the financial realities of life.
Yes.
In relationships, your financial goals will change. Your financial situation will adjust. Sometimes not because of anything you could have predicted. Who would have predicted a global pandemic, for example?
Right.
But being flexible and being open to communicate, I think, is key.
And realizing that we all have these money stories that we come into relationships with, and some of them may have truth, but many of them need to be reframed.
Mm-hmm.
And being vulnerable enough to share what your views are on money and not have it be a wedge, because it could very easily be. So if you have two people coming together that are open to this, it can truly allow them to do great things together, and not have that be one of the things that leads you to divorce. So, I think there's great opportunity by people finding the right professionals, being open, and really thinking about what is important to me in my life and how can I leverage resources that are available. So let's start to change conversations around money, especially for women. Let's make this so empowering and exciting that they can't wait to meet with, the CPA, the financial planner, because those conversations lead them to happiness, joy in life, and doing what they want.
Yes. And I love that. And I like to say it's not only about creating a foundation and building that foundation. I like to push the buck. I like to say we are all here to create an empire, our own empire.
Yes.
And financial planning is one of those key tools to create the empire.
I would agree.
Well, Leah, thank you so much for being here and joining us in the Legal Lounge. It has been a pleasure hearing your point of view in financial advising.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Once again, huge advocate and just a fan of not only amazing attorneys like yourself, but people that advocate for educating and informing people of what is rightfully theirs and good steps they can take. So thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.